Making smart financial decisions is crucial for your securing of a financial future you're happy with.
You want some of this, don't you?
Yeah!
Well, you need to know the winners, and I know the winners.
But unfortunately, there are many common pitfalls that many of us fall into. In reality, most people are making these mistakes in life. Far more than half. I truly mean most people. They're all common sense, but almost no one actually follows them all, as it requires a lot of discipline and a lot of consistent decision making on small things that adds to a larger picture. It's easier said than done, but certainly these steps all contribute to a healthy retirement and will simply make you wealthier than the counterfactual. The first mistake most people make, evidence from the research that consistently comes out about the average savings of any particular country's citizens, is neglecting an emergency fund. This is your financial cushion, your safety net in terms of unexpected hardship, because it will happen. Life can throw you curveballs, whether it's a sudden medical expense, a major car repair, or even a job loss.
You're fired! I'm sorry. Did you just call me a liar?
No, I said you were fired.
Oh. That's much worse.
Now, I know it's very boring. Let's be honest, when you're starting out and you want to get to actually building your wealth through investments, it's boring to be doing a savings account. It is psychologically more enjoyable to buy $10,000 worth of shares than it is to put $10,000 aside into an emergency fund, but it is vital that you do this. It's not a question of if, but when these unforeseen circumstances will arise. That's why it's crucial to set aside at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in an easily accessible account. This fund acts as a financial shield, offering peace of mind and allowing you to weather storms without resorting to things like high interest loans or credit cards, which is what most people have to do because they don't have the money. And these forms of financial support are incredibly expensive. In fact, this effectively leads to debt trapping for most people who find themselves subjected to it.
Although I don't have as cavalier an attitude toward my debt as the song suggests. I'm actually up most nights with severe panic attacks. I've taken to throwing up in the yard so my wife won't hear me.
Remember, this fund should cover not just regular expenses, but also any specific financial obligations you might have. An easy example everyone's going to have is either rent or a mortgage. There's also insurance premiums and all sorts of other fixed costs that you'd be better aware of than I am for your personal circumstance. Furthermore, you need to consider where you keep your emergency fund. It's all good and well to put $30,000 aside, but you want to be put into the best use possible. A high yield savings account or a money market fund can be a good option for most people as they provide some level of interest while still allowing you to quickly access the funds. A hot tip from me, if you have a mortgage of a property, whether it's one you live in or an investment property, you can actually get an offset or a redraw account that make parking, let's say $30,000 into it, incredibly useful for you. Another thing that almost everyone falls victim to is living beyond their means. There's no doubt most people today are living lives that are in excess of their actual earnings, because you can get away with doing it. It's just not smart. One of the most common traps is trying to maintain an unsustainable lifestyle. It's easy to succumb to the allure of a bigger house, a flashier car, or all sorts of things like the latest gadgets. Apple does very well out of this. However, overextending on houses, cars, or other expenses can lead to a cycle of debt and financial distress. It's crucial to distinguish between needs and wants in life. Now, I'm not saying you can't have any wants, but you need to appreciate what needs to happen this month and what you would like to happen, and be particularly critical with the latter. Creating a comprehensive budget that allocates funds appropriately will always help prevent overspending. Remember, it's not about how much you make, but how much you keep. Of course, making more bloody well helps, but if you're not making more while you work on creating more financial income for yourself, you need to ensure you are living within that income so that you can keep as much as possible. You need to prioritize financial stability and long-term goals over short-term indulgences. Consider this: every dollar spent on non-essential items could be a dollar invested for your future. It's all about finding the right balance between enjoying today and securing tomorrow, and this looks different for all of us. But there's got to be a balance that makes sense. It all adds up, and surprisingly quickly if you can practice discipline and patience. And when making significant purchases like a home or a car, consider the long-term financial implications. Factor in the maintenance costs, the higher insurance, what the resale value might be, and make sure you're making informed decisions now that can save you from financial strain in the future. One thing people constantly overlook is if they get a car on finance, how it's going to affect their borrowing capacity for example, getting a second mortgage for an investment property. It's critical you understand the repercussions of your actions. A third mistake most people make is ignoring retirement planning. Now, if you're watching this channel, you're probably not entirely ignorant of this, but most people are. So let's talk about this mistake that often stems from a misplaced sense of time. I know my average demographic on YouTube is rather young, which is fantastic. You've got more time than most. I'm still in my late 20s, and I've certainly got more time than most, but it's never too early to start thinking about it, and the earlier you start, the better off you'll be. Many people put off saving for retirement, underestimating the incredible power of compound interest.
Okay, you had a balance of 93 cents.
All right.
And at an average of 2.25% interest over a period of 1,000 years, that comes to $4.3 billion.
Starting early can significantly amplify the growth of your retirement nest egg. You need to take full advantage of every benefit you can get, including employer-sponsored retirement plans and any matching contributions they offer. Consulting with a financial advisor can provide valuable insights into tailoring a retirement plan that aligns with your unique goals and circumstances. However, I personally don't do this because I enjoy actually doing the research for myself, and ultimately I am a banking and finance lawyer, so there is a degree of credibility that I can bring to look at these things that maybe others can't. If you want to inform yourself, it takes a lot of time, but in my opinion it's very rewarding. Remember, every dollar you invest today can have a longer compounding effect than a subsequently invested dollar, and that makes a big difference in the end. And the earlier you invest, the greater benefit for your future self. When planning for retirement, consider your desired lifestyle and estimate your expenses accordingly. Remember to factor in inflation and potential healthcare costs, especially if you plan to retire early, because these will work against you for longer. This point about inflation is particularly important because YouTube financial gurus, well, they seem to constantly ignore this point, which is such a massive variable that makes their financial modeling pretty useless. Now, I can see why they do it. It's much more exciting to tell people that $1,000 a month invested for 40 years at 8% equals $3.5 million, because that's a lot of money. And of course, that sounds better than going further and explaining that that sum is not actually $3.5 million as we know it today, rather something more like $1.3 million if we assume a 2.5% inflation rate. Now, I think we can all agree that telling people they'll have $3.5 million in retirement without explaining the future value is equivalent to $1.3 million is pretty bloody misleading. While you can live on the dividends alone on a $1.3 million portfolio today, it's a pretty simple existence. If you can assume a 3% dividend, you're going to get $39,000 a year or $3,250 a month. Technically, you could live on that, but it's not a great quality of life, particularly if there's two of you. However, if you actually had a genuine $3.5 million as we know it today, well, you'd be getting $105,000 a year or $8,750 per month. That is a huge difference. Now, that is what you actually want. The problem is that $3.5 million in 40 years' time with a 2.5% inflation rate is actually something like $9.5 million. So the $1,000 a month simply will not cut it. For that, you would need something like $2,725 a month at 8%. And while that's definitely doable, it's a very different financial proposition than putting away simply $1,000 a month from the original misleading figures. You need to make sure you're using the right factors in your modeling, otherwise you'll be horribly disappointed in 40 years when, let's be honest, you can't do anything about it. In 40 years' time, for me, for example, I'll be almost turning 70. It will be very hard for me to continue to work and save because I'm going to start to slow down naturally, and I'm going to want to enjoy those later years anyway. I don't want to work until I die, or at least I don't want to work a traditional 9 to 5 until I die. Now, you've got to consider diversifying for your retirement investments. A mix of stock, bonds, and other assets can help spread risk and potentially lead to a more stable long-term growth. Again, a balance for you to find. The fourth issue that everyone seems to make is the using of credit cards, or should I say the misusing of credit cards. Credit cards, when used responsibly, offer convenience, rewards, and can even help build a credit history, which can be really important for things like getting mortgages. However, they can also lead to a cycle of debt if mismanaged, and this is what occurs to way too many people.
What did you just say?
Nothing, just had a little deja vu.
Paying only the minimum balance and carrying a high balance can result in exorbitant interest charges that eat away at your financial stability.
Come on, don't you realize this is costing me money?
It's essential to treat credit cards as a tool, not a lifeline. Always pay them off in full each and every month to avoid any unnecessary interest charges. Additionally, be mindful of your future credit utilization ratio to maintain a healthy credit score, which is crucial for future financial endeavors like buying a home or securing favorable loan terms. Consider using credit cards strategically, such as for cashback rewards or travel points, because there's an easy benefit you can pick up and it is meaningful. But always ensure that your spending aligns with your budget and that you have the means to pay off your balance in full. Like any financial instrument, you need to monitor your statements regularly to make sure any unauthorized or suspicious transactions are identified as soon as possible. Promptly reporting any issue can help protect your financial security. A fifth mistake, and one that's really easy to do, is neglecting insurance coverage. Another common mistake is underestimating the importance of having appropriate insurances in place, whether it's for health, life, or property. Having the right coverage can safeguard you and your loved ones from unexpected financial burdens. It's a similar logic to the emergency fund. However, the reality is putting aside 6 months of expenses is not going to be a lot of help if your house burns down. You're not going to build it again for 30 grand. There are certain costs that are very difficult to self-insure for. In fact, I'd say it's impossible to self-insure for the average person. This is where insurance comes in handy. Even though it is very expensive, it is proportionally so for most people. Whether it's health, life, or property insurance, you have to have the right coverage. Take the time to review your insurance policy regularly. Life changes, and so do your insurance needs. Consider consulting with an insurance expert or a broker if you need to get better information, but again, I think doing your own research here will make for a more informed decision and save you some money. When it comes to life insurance, there's a lot of factors to consider, particularly with your family financial needs. This is something that, for most of you, I imagine is going to be quite simple. In fact, maybe you can get away with not having it right now, because if you're a young 20-something-year-old male who's single, well, you don't have dependents, you don't have a lot of concerns. I, however, am married and I have my first daughter on the way. So that changes my risk profile and my need to ensure that money's put aside for my loved ones. A sixth and final mistake is a failure to invest. If you're watching this channel, this probably isn't a mistake that you're making the way other people are. You're clearly at least curious about financial knowledge. Stashing all your money into a savings account might provide a sense of security, but it's a false one, and it actually erodes your purchasing power over time due to inflation, because you're never going to get an interest rate that'll be good enough, because it doesn't work with the bank's business. They're not in the business of giving you money for nothing. Their margin, which is how they make their money, is going to come at the expense of you in the long term. Investing is the key to long-term financial growth. I'm not saying it has to be in shares. You can invest in property, you can invest in a lot of things. If you don't know, invest in a lot of things diversely and very clever. Take your lack of knowledge out of the equation so that the risk profile is a very good one. Research different investment options and understand the principle of diversification, because this is going to involve spreading your risks across various asset classes, and that effectively helps manage your risk. Consider stocks, bonds, real estate, or any other logical investment vehicle based on your risk tolerance and financial goals. Remember, investing wisely today can yield significant returns in the future. Keep in mind that investment strategies should align with your own financial goals and risk tolerances. Consider consulting with a financial advisor if you need. Be really careful taking information from YouTube from people, even like me, but certainly like some of the more popular financial gurus who are just talking crap.
I'm a financial planner, not a financial consultant.
You need to think critically and for yourself. When investing, take a long-term perspective. Markets may fluctuate in the short term, but historical trends have shown that well-diversified portfolios tend to grow over time. It's not particularly rewarding right away, but patience and discipline will lead to an approach that can lead to meaningful wealth accumulation. So that's it. 6 really obvious mistakes that if you can help avoid, you'll be doing better than 99% of people, because the reality is pretty much most people have fallen victim to at least one of these, if not more. We've covered some of the most common financial mistakes that the average person might make, but there are more, so you need to consistently be informing yourself on every step along the way. But that's life in general, that's not just financial wealth. Remember, being aware of these pitfalls gives you a power, or at least the ability, to make better financial decisions and build a more secure future. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, guys, and give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. And of course, let me know what you think in the comment section.